Hello, I'm Esther Githu-Ewart. It's Tuesday, January 25th. This is Africa 54.
Burkina Faso's army says it has removed President Roch Kabore. Africa's traditional Chinese medicine boom sparks fears for endangered wildlife species. And as COVID infection rates drop across the continent, experts warn the threat is far from over.
We begin our broadcast in Burkina Faso, where mutinous soldiers in the West African nation say they have ousted President Roch Kabore, citing his inability to unite the nation as the reason. More than a dozen mutinous soldiers appeared on state television Monday to make the announcement. A military junta now controls the country. David Doyle has more.
Celebrations erupted in Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou, on Monday evening, after the army said it had ousted the president. That announcement on state television also said that Roch Kabore's government had been dissolved, the constitution suspended, and the West African country's borders closed. It was made in the name of a previously unheard-of entity, the Patriotic Movement for Safeguard and Restoration, and was said to have been signed by Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Sandaogo de Miba. The statement cited the deterioration of the security situation and what the army described as Kabore's inability to unite the country. It added that the takeover had been carried out without violence and that those detained were in a secure location. Kabore has not been seen since heavy gunfire erupted from several military camps on Sunday. On Monday morning, bullet-ridden armoured vehicles of the presidential fleet could be seen outside his residence. One was stained with blood. Kabore had faced waves of protests in recent months amid frustration over the killing of civilians and soldiers by militants linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State. Soldiers mutinying on Sunday were said to be demanding more support in their fight against the insurgents. As the sun set on Ouagadougou's Place de la Nation, President Mahamadou Ouedraogo claimed that most people support the military and were relieved that Kabore was no longer president. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, the African Union and West African bloc ECOWAS have all condemned the move by the military and urged it to ensure Kabore's safety.
That report was filed by David Doyle of Reuters. At least 8 people in Cameroon have died in a stampede outside a stadium hosting a game at Africa's top football tournament. Officials at the Mesasi hospital say they received at least 40 injured people. The crash happened Monday as crowds struggled to get access to Olembe Stadium in Yaoundé to watch the host country play Comoros in a last 16 knockout game in the Africa Cup of Nations tournament. In a statement, the Continental Football Governing Body says that it is currently investigating the situation while trying to get more details on what transpired. Five-year-old Hanifa Abdullah was kidnapped for about 6 weeks and allegedly killed by the proprietor of her school, Abdul Malik Tanko, at Noble Kids Academy in Nasarawa local government area of Kano State after demanding a ransom of 6 million naira. VOA Hausa reporter Baraka Bashir spoke with her mother, Murja Suleiman, as she recounted how they discovered that her daughter was kidnapped and how the suspect was caught.
So the media came to our house and said they think this could be a kidnapping case, right? A relative said they had no evidence to support the theory that she was kidnapped. Then I got a text in full Fude, in angry tone that said, "You said we did not give you evidence. Okay, we will send it."
I was shocked.
When I saw the bag, I was shocked. It contained Hanifa's sweater, her school badge, and her picture. I told my husband, "I told you Hanifa was kidnapped." "Where is the evidence?" he asked. "Here it is. The person texting me was the one that took her." Since then, I lost my appetite. I couldn't sleep. I could not eat. But I did not tell anyone. I called my older brother, who is a uniformed personnel. I told him I was warned not to inform the police.
We are not illiterate.
But he said, "We have to. We are not illiterates." Later on, the kidnapper called me and asked, "Did you see my message which I left by your door? We came and called you, but you did not pick up your phone." Then I said, "I did not see it." He said, "You are lying. We left it by your door." The suspect said, "I want 6 million today, Sunday. I will send you the 6 million, but I want to hear Hanifa's voice to be sure she's alive." Then he responded that, "You are playing with my intelligence." You are all disturbing me with these questions. Then my relative took the money. When he got there, he dropped the bag. The suspect picked the bag and left. He sent me a text message within 30 minutes and said, "We want to get him angry. How did 6 million turn to 100,000 naira?" I responded that he should not be angry. It's because we don't have it. I asked him to please reduce the ransom. Over my child that I am bargaining. I pleaded with him to reduce the amount. So he said to me via text that he's reducing the amount to 5 million naira. So we again prepared another ransom. Truthfully, SS did a great job. They were hiding at the scene where we were supposed to hand over the ransom. Thereafter, the uncle came to pick the ransom. They then caught him. They questioned him, "What are you doing here?" He responded, "I came to pee." "Came to pee from where?" "I am a school teacher," he said. At the time they caught him, I was told it was the proprietor of Hanifa's school that kidnapped her. I asked, "Where is Hanifa?"
The suspect, Abdul Malik Tanko, has been arraigned before a magistrate's court in Kano. A prominent activist for women's rights in Sudan is being detained by masked men carrying guns, according to her sister. Soraya Ali reports.
Prominent women's rights activist Amira Osman has been detained in a nighttime raid on her home in Sudan's capital Khartoum, her sister said on Sunday. That detention comes amid what activists say has been a campaign of arrests of civil society and pro-democracy figures since a military takeover in October. Amani Osman said masked men in civilian clothing took her sister late on Saturday night in the Al Riyadh neighborhood.
They stormed through the door and came into the house. There were so many of them, around 15 men and another 15 outside, carrying guns and Kalashnikovs.
The United Nations mission in Sudan said on Twitter it was outraged by Osman's arrest and cited a pattern of violence against women's rights activists. Osman campaigned against the rule of former President Omar al-Bashir. She was arrested in 2013 for refusing to wear a headscarf and was convicted and fined in 2022 for wearing trousers. Women played a prominent role in the uprising that overthrew Bashir in 2019. The transitional government that followed repealed the public law order used to regulate women's dress and behaviour, though some other restrictive laws remain. Some high-profile political figures have been released since the October 25th coup, but activists say others remain in detention and arrests have continued. Sudanese security officials did not immediately respond to a request for comment.
That was Surah Ali of Reuters reporting. Sudanese authorities released 9 doctors and staff members working with the NGO Without Borders on Tuesday, according to the medical aid group. The staff members were arrested in Khartoum on Monday on their way back to their office from a local hospital. The group's emergency medical teams are working with health authorities in Khartoum to treat COVID-19 patients, as well as protesters hurt in recent anti-military demonstrations. Beijing has been exporting traditional Chinese medicine worldwide, including 2 countries in Africa. With claims of fighting COVID, these herbal clinics are welcomed by some, while others are raising concerns about the effectiveness of such medicines and the lack of regulation in the field. Victoria Munga reports from Nairobi.
My life now is not that productive.
85-year-old Heng Pal Singh is among dozens of patients with daily appointments at the Oriental Chinese Herbal Clinic in Nairobi. Singh has been suffering from spinal problems for 5 years and is now trying out this clinic for treatment.
There is a slight difference. As I was telling him that it's only a week now, he says he'll take at least maybe another at least 12 to 15 sessions, and then we see how it goes.
Traditional Chinese medicine, or TMC, is becoming more popular in Africa, according to a 2020 study by Development Reimagined, a Beijing-based international consultancy firm. A February 2020 op-ed written by a Beijing think tank researcher and published in state media China Daily said such traditional medicine will boost the Chinese economy, contribute to global health, and prove to be a shot in the arm for China's soft power. But conventional medical doctors say patients are overlooking the potential harm that some herbal remedies can cause, especially if used too frequently or too high a dosage.
They do work in quite a number of circumstances. Now, having said that, our main worry as the practitioners, the medical practitioners, is that the use of herbal medicine is not as regulated as we would want it to be.
Although the safety and effectiveness of the traditional Chinese medicine is still debated worldwide, herbal practitioners like Li Shuang continue to gain popularity among those seeking alternative medication. Li claims some of his patients are benefiting from purported COVID-19 remedies, although there's a scant scientific evidence that they can help against the disease.
Many people buy our herb to prevent COVID-19. The result are good.
Environmentalists fear the growth of traditional Chinese medicine will encourage poachers to go after endangered wildlife like rhinos and some species of snakes used in making the potions.
The rhino in Kenya is actually one of the good examples, with people saying that the rhino horn may actually help in improving to be used as an aphrodisiac. This has led to almost complete annihilation of the rhino species in Kenya and in Africa in general.
Kenya spends an estimated $2.7 billion each year on healthcare, according to national statistics. Some economists say herbal medicine can significantly lower the cost of medical expenses in the continent if proven effective.
Africans spend quite a bit of money traveling to countries like us, such as India, the UAE, to get treatment. So if this can provide more natural, more cost-effective healthcare, because cost effectiveness is a big reason of why people choose different types of healthcare.
In 2021, Kenya's national drug regulator, the Pharmacy and Poisons Board, approved the sale of Chinese herbal health products in the country. Practitioners like Lee hope that more nations will approve Chinese herbal medicine in the future. Victoria Amunga for VOA News, Nairobi.
Still to come, a new vaccine enters the pool of shots against COVID-19, targeting low and middle-income countries. But first, let's check in with Heidi Adams to see what's coming up on Wednesday's Straight Talk Africa.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, we're going to look at the Me Too effect on Africa's women.
Sisterhood! Sisterhood! Hear my voice! Hear my voice!
In recent years, the movement against sexual abuse and harassment has helped bring high-profile figures in Hollywood and global politics to book.
To be a woman is not a crime! To be a woman is not a crime!
But how global and inclusive is the Me Too movement? Is it helping or hurting the fight for women's rights and safety in African countries? We'll also look at the role and space for men in the conversation. So be sure to join me, Heidi Adams, on the next Straight Talk Africa.
The World Health Organization reported recently that weekly cases of COVID-19 have decreased significantly across Africa. Deaths are declining for the first time since the peak of the fourth Omicron-related COVID wave. Medical experts say the Omicron outbreak has spread and declined with unprecedented speed in parts of the continent, including in South Africa, where the variant was first identified. They say despite progress, the threat of COVID-19 is not over yet. Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu spoke with Dr. Nonso Ejiofor, team leader for health operations in the WHO Regional Office for Africa.
What we are observing is that the curve, the peak of the fourth wave, in the last 2 weeks, we have had a steady decline in the number of cases. And so it's suggestive of what we may call a decline or a descent of the fourth wave. The fourth wave is largely fueled by the Omicron variant of COVID-19. And so this is what we are witnessing, and we think it's an encouraging trend. The data we are gathering is suggestive of the fact that while the Omicron variant of the COVID-19 may be very highly transmissible, clinically we have seen relatively less severe manifestations, and that has accounted for the comparatively lower deaths or fatalities that we have seen in the fourth wave.
Where are we seeing the reduction? Is it country-specific or region-specific?
The observations are across the region. There is the aspect of low fatalities or less severe impacts observed from Omicron-related cases. But then, of course, there are a number of other factors. We cannot discountenance the fact that the vaccination of the vulnerable population, within which we expect the severe outcomes like death, we've made progress in that area. We've also made progress in the investment that we have made in terms of strengthening case management capacities. We understand this disease better, and we are better able to care for them. We have also done some work in terms of pre-positioning the necessary resources that we require to care for patients with COVID-19. And I think all of these factors contribute to the trend that we are seeing, not just in one country, but spread across the region.
So how do we maintain this trend?
While it is a bit difficult to predict with a large precision the direction in terms of what we will see in future, WHO is exploring what we call a repositioning of our strategy. We will be launching what we call the CARE strategy. CARE is an acronym, C-A-R-E, and CARE actually stands for Confirm, Assess, Respond, and Evaluate. So we are focusing on a strategy that identifies and confirms cases of COVID-19, have a thorough clinical assessment of those cases in terms of the clinical manifestations, the vulnerabilities. Of course, you know that patients with comorbidities are most vulnerable and are most at risk of severe manifestation of disease. We are also looking at responding. Following this assessment, you want to provide the appropriate treatment, identify the patient, so you want to give the right patient the right medication, the right time, and in the right dose. It is then important for us to focus on the public health measures that we have put in place, focus on cascading this key information to the countries at subnational levels, at community levels, while also strengthening our capacity to manage cases.
Dr. Ejiofor, right now the Africa Cup of Nations is ongoing in Cameroon. What would the WHO say in terms of keeping people safe?
Preparatory to this tournament, there were consultations, there were deployments of experts who had to make an assessment of the measures that have been put in place to ensure that this does not turn out to be a super spreader event. And so long as those recommendations have been fully complied with, I think that the chances that there will be a surge following the tournament is quite low. There is demand for the correct information. There is more than ever before. Africans want to know, what do I need to keep safe? What do I do that puts me at risk? So I think that we can leverage the opportunity that the African Cup of Nations provides to also drive these messages.
What are your thoughts in terms of lessons learned and moving forward?
We do not have control over the behavior of the viruses, but we have control over our behavior. We have control over how we can approach it, over how we can shape our living in a way that does not pose a health threat to either ourselves or those around us. And so I think that the message I'd like to leave here will be for us to continue to take those measures that are recommended by governments of member states, by public health experts across the board, take them seriously. The fact that Omicron has not manifested severity in terms of clinical outcomes is not a guarantee that if there is another variant, and there is likely to be, that it will be the same as Omicron. And so for me, to Africans, it will be that it's not over yet. We've made some tremendous progress, but I know that a lot of work still needs to be done.
Dr. Nonso Ejiofor, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Leonard.
That was Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu speaking with Dr. Nonso Ejiofor, team leader for health operations in the WHO Regional Office for Africa. A new vaccine has entered the pool of shots against COVID-19. This one aims to reach low and middle-income countries where vaccine access is lagging behind that of wealthier countries. But it is not clear what role it will play in the evolving pandemic. VOA Steve Baragona explains.
The new vaccine, developed at Baylor College of Medicine, is 90% effective against the original COVID-19 coronavirus and 80% against the Delta variant. Data on Omicron is coming. The vaccine is also cheap, refrigerator stable, and easy to manufacture in developing countries, says team co-lead Dr. Peter Hotez.
So when you start going down the checklist, this checks all the boxes for what you need for a global health vaccine.
Hotez and colleagues use the same old tried and true technology that they've used to develop vaccines against neglected tropical diseases, those that Big Pharma is less inclined to treat, because that's what's most available to vaccine makers in low and middle income countries, he says.
That's why I was so disheartened at the beginning of the pandemic when everyone was focusing on new technologies. I knew that would be a barrier to access.
Wealthier nations poured money into making new technology vaccines. Now, about 80% of people in upper-income countries have been vaccinated, but only about 10% in low-income countries have. And Hotez and colleagues are making the vaccine available without patents. He says intellectual property rights just get in the way during a global crisis.
If your house is on fire and you can only have time to make one phone call, you don't call a patent attorney, you call the fire department, and we're the fire department.
The Indian government recently authorized the vaccine, and Indian company Biological E is making hundreds of millions of doses a month under the name Corbavax. Companies in Indonesia, Bangladesh, and Botswana are planning production too. But it's not clear whether Corbavax will hold up as well as the new technology vaccines against the Omicron variant, says Johns Hopkins University vaccine expert Dr. William Moss.
The Sinopharm, Sinovac vaccines, those are an older technology. They are not doing well against Omicron. Very much reduced vaccine effectiveness.
Global supplies of other vaccines are improving. The United Nations-backed COVAX program recently delivered its 1 billionth dose. Big drug makers are promising billions more doses this year. And other new vaccines are entering the market. But if it holds up against variants, a low-cost vaccine like Corbavax will still be useful, because COVID-19 will be with us for years to come, Moss says.
We'll be kind of transitioning into this kind of endemic mode and more routine vaccination, and that's where these vaccines may play a role.
Experts say a regular shot against multiple COVID-19 strains could be in everyone's future. The less it costs, the better. Steve Baragona, VOA News.
South Sudan has held a Peace Olympics to help reconcile communities divided by conflict. The Twig Olympics this year marked its 20th anniversary. Sheila Pony reports from Twig County, South Sudan.
At this Olympics opening ceremony, a spiritual leader blesses athletes to protect them from injury, while a goat represents the belief that power comes from nature. This is not the Winter Olympics in Beijing. It's the Twitch Olympics in northern South Sudan. The annual 2 weeks of games in January attracts athletes from 6 communities to compete in traditional Olympic and team sports. The aim? To reduce communal conflict. Volleyball player Ring Agok Ring knows violence firsthand.
In 2021?
In May, they came to raid our cattle, and in the process of protecting them, I was shot. 2 bullets are now with me. And at last, I succeeded to get my cows back. As I'm still now in the games, I'm an injured person through cattle raiding. I still can play because I'm seeing it as a unifying factor.
More than 700 athletes participated this year's 20th anniversary games, which also promotes health issues such as preventing COVID, HIV, and waterborne diseases. Twitch Olympics founder Achuil Bangol says the games have a mission.
Peace does not come without agenda. You cannot tell people to remain peaceful without them being active on something that is keeping them away from bad activities. You're building another avenue of communicating and interacting with youth.
South Sudan is the world's youngest country at 11 years of independence, but it has never been fully at peace. Twitch Olympics Association Secretary Chol Ajing says involving youth in the games can help end conflicts.
In South Sudan, the crisis of 2013 and 16 was fueled up because the young people responded. And what about if young people get engaged in activities like this and do not think about joining the politicians and fuel the war?
These South Sudanese athletes prefer tug of war and are urging those still fighting real battles to drop their weapons and join them in the glory of sports. Sheila Pony for VOA News, Twitch Mayardit County, South Sudan.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.